Mendicants. When mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it is of great fruit and great benefit. Mindfulness of breathing, when developed and cultivated, fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness. The four foundations of mindfulness, when developed and cultivated, fulfill the 7 awakening factors. And the 7 awakening factors, when developed and cultivated, fulfill true knowledge and liberation. And how is mindfulness of breathing developed and cultivated to be of great fruit and great benefit? It's when a mendicant, gone to a wilderness, or to the root of a tree, or to an empty hut, sits down cross-legged, sets their body upright, and establishes mindfulness in the present. Ever mindful, they breathe in. Mindful, they breathe out. Breathing in deeply, they know, I'm breathing in deeply. Breathing out deeply, they know, I'm breathing out deeply. When breathing in lightly, they know, I'm breathing in lightly. Breathing out lightly, they know, I'm breathing out lightly. They practice like this. I'll breathe in sensitive to the whole body. I'll breathe out sensitive to the whole body. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, calming the bodily processes. I'll breathe out, calming the bodily processes. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, sensitive to rapture. I'll breathe out, sensitive to rapture. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, sensitive to pleasure. I'll breathe out, sensitive to pleasure. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, sensitive to the mental processes. I'll breathe out, sensitive to the mental processes. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, calming the mental processes. I'll breathe out, calming the mental processes. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, sensitive to the mind. I'll breathe out, sensitive to the mind. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, gladdening the mind. I'll breathe out, gladdening the mind. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, unifying the mind. I'll breathe out, unifying the mind. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, releasing the mind. I'll breathe out, releasing the mind. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, contemplating impermanence. I'll breathe out, contemplating impermanence. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, contemplating fading away of passion. I'll breathe out, contemplating fading away. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, contemplating cessation. I'll breathe out, contemplating cessation. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, contemplating letting go. I'll breathe out, contemplating, letting go. Mindfulness of breathing, when developed and cultivated in this way, is of great fruit and great benefit. And how is mindfulness of breathing developed and cultivated so as to fulfill the four foundations of mindfulness? Whenever a mendicant abides observing the in-breath and out-breath, while breathing deeply or lightly, or experiencing the whole body, or calming the physical processes, at that time they abide contemplating body as body, keen, fully aware and mindful, having put aside desire and distress regarding the world. For the in-breath and out-breath are an aspect of the body. That's why I say at that time, a mendicant abides contemplating the body as body. Whenever a mendicant practices breathing in and out while experiencing rapture, or experiencing pleasure, or experiencing the mental processes, or calming the mental processes, at that time they abide contemplating feeling as feelings, keen, fully aware and mindful, having put aside desire and distress regarding the world. For I say that with careful application of mind to the in and out breaths, one observes certain feelings. That's why at that time a mendicant abides contemplating feelings as feelings. Whenever a mendicant practices breathing in and out while experiencing the mind, or gladdening the mind, or unifying the mind in samadhi, or releasing the mind, at that time they abide contemplating mind as mind, keen, fully aware and mindful, having put aside desire and distress regarding the world. For there is no development of mindfulness of breathing for one who is forgetful, who is not fully aware. That's why I say at that time, a mendicant abides contemplating mind as mind. Whenever a mendicant practices breathing in and out while contemplating impermanence, or fading away, or cessation, or letting go. At that time, they abide contemplating mind objects as mind objects. Keen, fully aware and mindful, having put aside desire and distress regarding the world. Having seen with wisdom the giving up of desire and distress regarding the world, they closely look on with equanimity. That's why I say at that time, a mendicant abides contemplating mind objects as mind objects. That is how mindfulness of breathing, when developed and cultivated, fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness. And how are the four foundations of mindfulness developed and cultivated so as to fulfill the 7 awakening factors? Whenever a mendicant remains contemplating body as body, or feelings as feelings, or mind as mind, or mind objects as mind objects, being keen, fully aware and mindful, having put aside desire and distress regarding the world. At that time, unremitting mindfulness is established in them. Whenever unremitting mindfulness is established in them, at such a time, the awakening factor of mindfulness is aroused. They develop it, and by development, it comes to fulfillment in them. And thus mindful, they investigate, explore, and inquire fully into that state with wisdom. Whenever abiding, thus mindful, one investigates, explores, and inquires fully into mind states with wisdom. At such a time, the investigation of Dharma, awakening factor, is aroused in them. They develop it, and by development, it comes to fulfillment in them. As they investigate with wisdom in this way, their energy is roused up and unflagging. Whenever such tireless energy is aroused in one who investigates a state with wisdom, at such a time, the awakening factor of energy is aroused in them. They develop it, and by development, it comes to fulfillment in them. When their energy is aroused in this way, unworldly rapture arises. Whenever unworldly rapture arises in one who has such energy, at that time the awakening factor of rapture is aroused in them. They develop it, and by development, it comes to fulfillment in them. When they feel such rapture, the body and mind become tranquil. Whenever the body and mind become tranquil in one who is rapturous, at such a time, the awakening factor of tranquility is aroused in them. They develop it, and by development, it comes to fulfillment in them. When their body is thus tranquil and they feel pleasure, their mind becomes unified in samadhi. Whenever the mind unifies in samadhi, in one whose body is tranquil and who feels pleasure, at such a time, the awakening factor of samadhi is aroused in them. They develop it, and by development, it comes to fulfillment in them. With the mind thus unified in samadhi, they closely watch on with equanimity. Whenever one closely looks on with equanimity at the mind unified in samadhi, at that time the awakening factor of equanimity is aroused in them. They develop it, and by development, it comes to fulfillment in them. That is how the four foundations of mindfulness, developed and cultivated, fulfill the 7 awakening factors. And how are the 7 awakening factors developed and cultivated so as to fulfill true knowledge and liberation? It's when a mendicant develops the awakening factors of mindfulness, investigation of Dharma, energy, rapture, tranquility, samadhi, and equanimity, supported by seclusion, dispassion, and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. That is how the 7 awakening factors, when developed and cultivated, fulfill true knowledge and liberation. That is what the Buddha said. The mendicants were satisfied and approved the Blessed One's words.